I suppose kind of from an early age, I was always really interested in business and wanting to work for myself.
Like knowing when it's time to move on.
I don't know if it's as easy as just as laying it out in a kind of how-to guide. We were doing a house build and we were living in a caravan in the garden. And so when the housing market started to slow down, it was a case of, well, you know, I've got my wife living in a caravan with me in the garden and she's not that happy about it. So.
How do you know, Oliver, when something is the next shiny thing?
But the reality is, I think you want to do at least one thing really, really well.
The cheesy line, isn't it, that failure really is just learning a lesson.
Welcome to Three Bosses in a Pod. I'm not sure how many episodes we've recorded now, but this is one I've been really looking forward to. I first met Ollie, and Matthew, actually, both of you, pretty much on the same day when we did the trade mission to China. And really amazingly, Ollie, you basically saved us when we landed in China. Do you remember?
I do, yeah.
You and Jimmy, I was wandering aimlessly with Callie off the plane, thinking, how do we get to where we need to go? Bumped into Ollie, the other side of all the passport controls, and magically had Jimmy, who obviously speaks Chinese, and then we were sorted. So just stuck with Ollie and Jimmy for the next couple of hours to make sure that we could get to the hotel, get fed, and go to bed on time.
Yeah, no problem. Having Jimmy on that trip was an absolute cheat code, wasn't it? It just made the whole thing so much better.
And then we met Matthew for some dinner, and then we had pigeons, basically, and pigeon beaks. Do you remember those coming out?
Baby pigeon heads, I think it was.
Little baby pigeon heads that were sort of wheeled out as a delicacy on that massive lazy Susan. Do you remember? And there was, and Jimmy had the brilliant foresight of ordering just a whole bunch of delicacies and things like this. And there were 8, 10 little pigeons heads, all deep pat fried, all looking up like this with their beaks open. Oh.
Whenever I talk to someone about China, that's the picture that gets shown. I don't show them the Great Wall of China. I just go, yeah, we had these pigeons on our first day.
Yeah, it was a good introduction to the Chinese food culture, I think, wasn't it?
Well, look, I think we need to welcome you in properly, Ollie. So the Three Bosses in the Pod is an idea where we bring in together people who are running, have sort of walked the walk, really, of growing a business and just sharing that journey with people. We have a theme for this first season. Matthew, what's the theme?
The theme is entrepreneurship in education.
You are the ideal person to have. We've been really, really fortunate, I think, mainly because Matthew chats to lots of people, have lots of links, and we've met some amazing people. I think you've got a lot to add, but we've just met briefly before, and sort of sharing like this is what we're going to be talking about, and very loosely because we like to keep it very much like a conversation. One of the things that you shared was like having a different background, like not educational based, so being actually way more like business focused, and perhaps having that commercial, to steal Matthew's word, commercial knowledge, which perhaps not many of us have. Would this be a good place to start, just to talk about like what you bring like with you into like this educational space from a business perspective, and then I'm sure like Matthew and myself can chip in like with the kind of things that we've brought into this space with that baggage of educational hanging around our necks, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess so. I suppose kind of from an early age, I was always really interested in business and wanting to work for myself. So out of university, I started making little businesses. So at one point I had a shoe shop selling big shoes, importing them from America and Germany, because there was a time when you just couldn't buy anything over like size 11 in the UK. So I used to import them in, but it wasn't too scalable because I was buying from retailers. So there wasn't really much margin in it, but it was teaching me about kind of getting an idea out there and starting something from scratch. Then I had a publishing company where I did estate agent booklets. So would get local businesses to kind of advertise in these map booklets, and the estate agents would give them away with property details for free. So it'd be a good way to get these businesses in front of people who were buying houses. So that was going quite well and starting to kind of build that up. And then the housing crisis hit was it about 2008? And that kind of then really affected that. So we were in the middle of building a house. So I ended up going and working, just doing some self-employed sales work for an education company who trained adults into the trades. So took people from what they were doing now to become plumbers, gas engineers, renewable energy engineers, that kind of thing. Ended up there for 10 years and ended up running their UK sales team. And just it started to become a bit it was grinding on my personal life too much, because I was away 6 days a week. We had 2 kids already. We were about to have a third. So I wanted to go back to working for myself. And we were finding a lot of these adults didn't have literacy and numeracy before they wanted to train. So therefore, the kind of idea of a maths and English tutoring business was born, and then started NLG. And yeah, here we are today.
Wow, that's some journey there.
So it sounds like you've had quite a few businesses and quite a few ventures. How many have you had in total? Are they still all going, or have most of them kind of shut down, or you sold them on, or whatever?
I've had a few, and I suppose, what do you count as a business? You know, I used to sell sweets on the back of the bus at school. Does that count as a business?
I think it does. I think it shows the initial. I think it shows the early signs of entrepreneurship. I absolutely, definitely think that's part of that. That's your first business.
That's probably the most profitable as well, Ollie.
Yeah, potentially. It was good fun. We had a drone business, actually, in kind of the early days of drones. So we were one of the first companies to get qualified in the UK to fly and film commercially with drones. But then DJI started releasing consumer level drones that the quality was just so good. And so it was difficult to push that. But yeah, I mean, NLG is my kind of main focus, really. Obviously got a few other projects around it at the moment, but yeah.
There's a question here that's about like knowing when it's time to move on from one idea into the next, which is probably where people who want to be business or run a business, want to be entrepreneurial, is something which is probably quite a tricky thing. And I'm at a crossroads with my first tutoring business right now, where other things are starting to grow. I absolutely love that first business. Like it's just a piece of me, and I'm like, oh God, do I do another year? Like if I start in September, that's me until the following August, and so it's another commitment. Now, do I? Probably financially, it makes sense to, like, in a really like safe way, but also me putting that time and effort means I can't put that time and effort into something else which is probably more scalable. What are the signs for you to say, like, there's 2 things you said, like the estate agent leaflet and booklet, and then the drone. Like both of those sound like they were good businesses making good money, and then suddenly you're like, oh well, I need to put that away now and do something different. Like, what are the signs? Like, how do you know?
I don't know if it's as easy as just as laying it out in a kind of how-to guide, really. I guess the thing that pushed me was that we were doing a house build and we were living in a caravan in the garden. And so when the housing market started to slow down, it was a case of, well, you know, I've got my wife living in a caravan with me in the garden and she's not that happy about it. So I probably need to do something to be able to speed this process up. And then I guess kind of other things, it just depends on the venture. You know, the drone business, the person I was doing it with had sold another business and wasn't really hungry for the money. So he was kind of happy to start at 11 in the morning, have a couple of hours off at lunch, be finished by 4 or 5, whereas I just wanted to really push it because we had a good opportunity. So I suppose it can depend on who you're doing it or the situation. But I think something that Matthew and I have spoken at length about before is also being aware of not to just keep getting distracted by the next shiny thing, because it's quite easy to see all these opportunities and think, oh, I'm going to go and chase that. And then you take your eye off the ball with other things, which can be, I'm sure we're all guilty of doing that.
That's been for me, that's been a really, really painful process. And I think it probably has been for you as well, Oliver. And I'll ask you the same question as well, Richard. But the next shiny thing is always like, oh, it's going to be, and for me, China was a little bit that. I was like, that's it. I'm going to internationalize Capital Tuition Group. It's going to be amazing. And I came back from having the most amazing time in China. And then I started and then I realized I was actually creating another business out of CTG. And I didn't have any of the processes, any of the systems, any really of the real resources to make it fundamentally work. And I realized this is not this is not just an extension or an evolution. It's a whole different business altogether. And I had to have a strict word with myself in the mirror, and I was like, Matthew, just stop, because this is not where you're at right now. How do you know, Oliver, when something is the next shiny thing versus when actually we're going to go firing on all cylinders here now?
I guess it's just weighing everything up, and I'm sorry about the clicking. I don't know what this clicking noise is in the background, if everyone can hear this, but it's quite distracting. So I guess it's sitting down and putting together a business
Should we
plan.
actually say why? We've got loads of clicking?
I feel like we should just own it now.
You need to tell the audience why you've got loads of clicking in the background.
I think potentially. So we've got a game of traitors happening in our office at the moment. So it's been going on for the last few weeks. So there's about 35 people playing, and there's. Have you seen Traitors? Have you seen the TV
I love
program?
it. Yeah.
And so Danny put it together, one of our tutor team managers, and she's done a fantastic job. It's really good. So there's round tables every few days. There's murders happening every night. And yeah, people are getting quite into it, probably to the detriment of any work getting done, because every conversation is just about traitors now.
What's the revenue doing at NLG right now throughout the course of the...
It matters until Traitors is finished, Matthew. Stop here.
Yeah, it's team building, isn't it?
Us with work.
Everybody's coming together as a team, so it's going to be worth it.
Thousands of pounds worth.
Well, there's a money at stake as well. So it'll either be a roaring success and it brings everyone together, or it's just going to cut the team in half and no one's going to be talking to each other come the end of the month. So we'll see how that goes. So it's over. I think it's over 3.5, 4 weeks.
Yeah. Wow. So let's go back to the question in hand, which is, how do you know when something is the next shiny distraction versus, hang on a minute, let's have a look at this. This is a really important strategic opportunity that I have to take, and I'm going to go for it. How do you discern the difference?
I guess it's just thinking about that idea over time, planning it out into like a structured business plan of, what are the worst case scenario? If I go and do this, what are the metrics that I want to judge it by? What does success look like? What does failure look like? How would we logistically do it? And then I'm quite fortunate that I've got a really good team with me here at NLG. So I've got people that can sense check everything, and I can sit down and they will tell me, this is a daft idea. You're getting distracted. Don't do this. Or, this is potentially worth looking at. And then usually if it's something relating to a current business, so for example, launching a new initiative in National Learning Group, we'll put a pilot together and actually just try it and just see if there's any traction there, see if it's realistic. I guess also just mental capacity of, does the team have capacity to take this on, or is it going to then take away from core business or other things we're doing? How do you do it? Because obviously you've started things with Tutor on Boarder, and you've got Tutors Who Thrive, Richard. So how did you to decide that they were going to be good ideas?
My process with Tutors Who Thrive was very similar mindset. It was like, I wonder if, so at the very early stages, I wonder if people would be interested in getting together and sort of having a focal point of somebody growing a business in front of you. Like, can I come and share my decisions and the things that work well, the things that I find out that didn't work, and just share them openly? That was the beginning part. I always had that in mind of, I'd really love to kind of do this one-to-many approach with supporting tutors and teachers to sort of make something more of their expertise. But I knew in the early days of something new, you kind of want to prove the concept. However, that quickly grew into something that has become more than a full-time job. And it's doesn't always bring in as well, like the income that I suppose in the early days that I thought, it might be able to get to this point here, and one-to-many sounds like a really good idea on paper because you can scale it up. There's no ceiling or anything. But I think the naivety, if I go back sort of 4 or 5 years and chat to that Richard then, it'd be like, yeah, you're going in with one-to-many being a great idea, but not knowing all the work that has to go in around that to make that happen. And so I think the decision early on was, I think this is something that people would like to connect with. let's see what can happen. Don't get me wrong, it's fine, but there's times when you go, oh, actually, I do the shiny object thing. I go, oh, I want to try this bit out because I think that could be it, or I'll try this thing out and then that could be it. But the reality is, I think you want to do at least one thing really, really well before then going in, and I forget that all the time. So I think you used the word sense check. I do this all the time now. It's become part of the process. I just run it past people who I trust first. What do you think? And they go, "Have you thought about this or this?" Or and I go, "No, I was just going to do it," and then spend the next 100 hours of my life putting all this time and effort into something that won't ever see the light of day. That's the reality. So I think it's similar.
But I think that's part of the journey of entrepreneurship, right? You've got to be brave. You've got to go for it. And there's nothing better than making the mistakes by doing. That's where the real learning happens. Yeah. But there is something that is really interesting. When I was challenged, I suppose, by my dad actually to set up Capital Tuition Group. I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory. I think I've already told you, Oliver, that I might have been you, Richard, anyway. But my dad was living in Hong Kong. I went to visit him. And for those of you who've been to Hong Kong, this was back in the sort of, 2010s, 2012s, that kind of period. It was becoming the absolute sort of center of the economic boom in the world. And I walked around Hong Kong. I was like, my gosh, Dad, there is so much money. There's so much money here. And he said, yeah, well, that's because people have ideas and then they just go for it. And I just said, slightly petulantly at the young age that I was. And I went, yeah, well, I've got an idea. And he said, all right, well, what's your idea then? And I said, well, it'd be just great if other people tutored for me. So he said, well, go on then. Just make it happen. And well, I can't because, busy and this and that, and it's Tuesday and the sky's blue and it's not possible. And so very, very quickly, by that evening, I bought a web domain. I decided what the name of the company was, and I started writing the copy that was going to go on the website. And all this time I was thinking, but there are already loads of other tutoring companies in London. There's loads of other tutoring companies in London. Why are they going to choose me to do it? And I had to really sit and think about, no, that's okay, Matthew. In fact, actually, that's a really good thing because it means that other people have already trodden the pathway before you and they've already made the mistake. So learn, figure out, look, and just then copy their model, literally copy their model. Why? Because they've taken 5 years to get to the stage where you can immediately start at. You can get from 0 to 5 years in about 5 months, which has saved me hundreds of thousands of pounds, well, not maybe hundreds of thousands, but certainly thousands of pounds. And I've just fast-tracked, accelerated the potential success of my business by about 5 years, not having to do all the learning that they've already done before me. So there's something about that as well that feeds back into the question is, well, how do you know something that's just not a shiny thing versus actually this is a really good potential opportunity? If there are some people who've got early adoption of a new thing, maybe it's group classes, group tuition classes or whatever it could be. If there are a couple of people who've done it just before you, and they're already proving it as a financially viable, business, that's a great, slot in behind them and quick.
There's a book I read quite a few years ago now. This is not business, but I took a business lesson from it, which is if you want to get fit down the gym, you go and copy what the fit people down the gym do. Right? You can talk to them about their diet, talk about their exercise regime, how often they go. And you don't even have to do as much as them, but something will start working eventually. So I think there is something in that. The whole what are other people doing? And we get this a lot within our Choose Who Thrive community, where that's one of the biggest questions. It could be different elements of business, but it could be pricing, could be, but I've got groups to fill up. How do I do this? And people go, well, I did this and this happened, and so people share good practice. So I think with business, it's definitely something to take from that. But what about when things don't work? So I have people come to me and they'll say, oh, did your course, Rich, and I was doing this part of it, but it hasn't quite worked out. Or I have copied, I've done this, but well, I'm not getting inquiries, or something's changing. And I think something's changed a little bit over the last 12 months with the service industry. I'm not sure of intuition yet. I think that something will change within the next the next 6 to 12 months. I think people will want more reassurances. There's this whole trust thing that's going on at the moment. Do I trust what you tell me, Matthew, or am I going to go and find out? Do I have to find out firsthand, or where are the testimonies? Who can I come and talk to? I'm going to need more and more of that. That's where I think we're going to be heading. How do you circumnavigate the unknown in business? Is it just about like a mindset thing for like-minded people like ourselves, where we go, well, I'm not sure this is going to work, but I'm just going to experiment and see anyway?
I think so. I mean, it's the cheesy line, isn't it, that failure really is just learning a lesson. So you learn what not to do and try something else. And, you kind of read that in a lot of people's biographies, but it's true, isn't it? Sometimes you just need to have a crack at something. And if it doesn't work, you've learnt a lesson. It might be an expensive lesson, but you've learned how it doesn't work. So then that's one less thing that when you try it again could potentially go wrong because you've learned not to do it. So I think the thing as the business grows and there's more people involved with it is those mistakes can affect more people, or those lessons can affect more people. So, when I first started National Learning Group, if I wanted to try something, I would just try it. And if it didn't work, it's really probably just my time that's been wasted. But now if we've got an office full of people and I say, right, we're going to try this, we're going to, experiment with, face-to-face or groups or whatever it might be, and just kind of push it out there and it doesn't work, it's not just my time, it's the admin team and the finance team and the tutor management team and the tutors, and everybody's suddenly being impacted by that decision. So I guess as you grow, you've got more people to consider, but you don't want that to then make you slow and not agile, if you know what I mean.
I've got two questions that have come up from that. The first one is, have you got a time in any of the businesses that you've done where there was a learning that was a cataclysmic mistake? And again, let's reframe the word mistake to a learning, right? But was that, you're like, wow, that really blew up in my face? And then the second thing, which is I wanted to answer a little bit later, which is, and I'm starting to get there with Capital Tuition Group, we've always been a really agile company, and now we're much bigger. I'm like, why is it taking a month to turn a corner? Like, why is it taking a month? It's become a tanker. So I'd love to hear about an example of an event you've got, whoa, this was a dreadful decision.
I mean, a year or so ago, we decided to move on to a shiny new lesson platform. And without kind of putting any names out there, we thought we'd done a lot of tests. We worked with the business to try and make sure that it was going to be smooth. A load of tutors trialed it. They loved it. It seemed great. So we moved, thousands of students and hundreds of tutors over to a completely different platform. And unfortunately, a lot of people's computers just weren't high enough spec to be able to run the software properly. And everything just collapsed. Lessons weren't able to go ahead. Parents were getting frustrated. Students weren't able to see their tutor. Lessons had cut off halfway through. And it was just a disaster. And we stuck with it for a few weeks thinking, we've done this for the right reason. We're going to try and make this work. We want everyone's lesson experience to be better. We wanted to take work away from the tutors and make things easier for everybody. And in the end, we had to do a 360 and go back to how things were before. And I often think about what could we have done differently with that? How could we have done that process and got a different outcome? And it's a difficult one because we thought we'd done enough testing. We thought we'd trialed it enough. And it was just that when you move from a small sample size to a much larger one, there are unforeseen things that you just can't plan for sometimes.
If you were to do it again, would you do it in, how would you do it again? Because I know that, you take yourself back to the same situation, you'll probably make the same decision, right? But let's say you're going to go ahead and do it. You've done all your due diligence, you've trialed it with your tutors, they loved it, some of the students loved it, blah, 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 blah. and then you go from, I don't know, a sample size of 20 students to then thousands of students. How would you have done that slightly different so that it wasn't, because I imagine that you lost a hell of a lot of money and you probably didn't sleep for like 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I've asked myself this question a lot. Would it have been better to phase the rollout and just do cohorts? But then that's quite difficult because some tutors are teaching across multiple subjects and multiple age groups. So then do you do it by subject? And then some tutors are teaching some lessons on one platform, some on another. Some students have got to log into one platform for maths and another for English, which just would have been a mess. So yeah, I don't know is the answer.
So you still okay? So we still haven't got an answer.
Yeah.
That's
It still keeps me awake at night.
This is interesting because I think we've got this resilience, and I think three things: that determination, first of all, and I think entrepreneurs have these three things in spades. I think you have like the determination to make the choice. Right, I think this is a good idea. We're just going to go take the risk. Then there's the perseverance to keep going. Like even if it's not going okay, you just think, oh, we'll just keep going through this. It'll be fine, and you kind of just believe and you have trust in yourself. And then there's the resilience on the back of that. Like all those three things come together. And I think when you have success, so even if we go back through your CV, like selling sweets on the back of the bus and just making like probably 15, 20 quid a day, which would be insane, like, and rucksacks full of like,
it was more just for the free sweets, to be honest. But.
Yeah, sure, like, funding your sweet habit. Like, but then we scale it up and we go into other businesses, which you take a risk, you persevere, you have that resilience, and you find success. And then when you find the right time, like for example, the estate agent business and the drones, this is the right time to kind of exit. But you've got that confidence, you've built it up over time, right? So you've all of those things sort of come together, and you find success, relative success. And then you experience something like this, where you're like, oh, that didn't work, which could be quite rare, like as in that level, like that kind of switch over, it's not working, you lose money, and like you say, you don't sleep for a couple of months because, oh my God, could have done that differently. Let's say like next week, the what you think is the best online platform you've ever seen, they give you loads of reassurance this is going to work. Do you take that experience into that conversation? And is that the learning? Like you go, well, do you know what? I did this before. Oh my God, this happened. I need more reassurance from you this time that I want to trial this for 6 months on a large scale to make sure it works before I'm paying a bean. Just something like that.
I guess it's hard, isn't it? Because you don't want the past to affect decisions in the future, but then you also have to learn from mistakes you've made. But if you've gone and dissected something that's happened and you can't think of, you can't identify one big thing that was the driving force behind it going wrong, then I suppose it would be daft to let that decision affect what's going to happen in the future. It's a tough one.
I think what you're talking is quite rare in a sense. Like that's I think the true entrepreneurial answer. Like because otherwise you'd never move on to the next thing. Because you might just go, oh well, that estate agent thing worked for a bit, now it didn't, so I'll just go and get a job now. Whereas you're like, actually, well, look, I can't let that affect the next thing. I've got all of these skills, even unconsciously, probably is like, well, I've got these skills that I could go and use into the next thing, and then whatever the next thing and all the learning you get in the next thing with the mistakes, you take that into the next idea, and even the growth of one business. So, yeah, I think there's something about that resilience and perseverance. Where do you think that comes from? Like with you, like that, it feels like a personality trait, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about it this deeply, to be honest. It's
Sorry, take you down the deep dark paths of your inner psyche. Come on.
I guess just self-belief and thinking that if you're going to do something, just do it as well as you can do it and take everything into account. But you just sometimes have to take the jump and take the risk, because if we sat and over-analysed everything that we were going to do, Tutor on Border, Tutors Who Thrive, if you guys had sat down, and I'm sure you'd had sleepless nights and worry about what if it doesn't work and what if this doesn't happen, and you'll run it by a lot of people who will say, well, that's going to be a waste of time, why bother? And at some point you just have to think, well, sod it, I'm just going to do it. And so you would be a fool not to let past experiences play into decisions a little bit, but also you've got to just think, well, that was that, and this is this, and they're two different things, and so it's kind of, you just got to look forward rather than back, I guess. It's hard to answer without sounding cheesy.
I really want to bring in like the educational side here, because a lot of people that I support or have supported, they bring a lot of baggage out with them, and I'll put a bit of context to that. In some, not all cases, in some cases, what teachers leave with is this like really super low self-esteem, because they've not heard how good they are for a long time. And so often the exit from school is painful. It's like somebody's literally said, "You're not good enough," and the reality is actually probably is that they are too expensive, and so they get like basically exited, and it's not done on their own terms. And and that was my experience. I don't know, that's a lot for me. I know it's not for everybody. Everybody has their own kind of like story around that. Is that something for you? I know, Matthew, like that wasn't your case either, that there was like a nice ending for you. Do you think not having that experience on you for you has been a benefit? Can you, Matthew, I don't know, because I know you've worked with tutors and ex-teachers all the time. Is that something that you've seen and felt within your business as it was growing? And was that something as a leader and a boss of your business you needed to be mindful about as you're building people's confidence back up again?
I think because Capital Tuition Group uses exclusively qualified teachers, for me, the scenario where teachers are dissatisfied with school, they're tired of working in schools, they've maybe had a forced exit, they've been looking for a way out. It's been advantageous for recruitment purposes for CTG, without a shadow of a doubt. And also the number of absolutely incredible practitioners that there are I worried when in my early days, I was like, I'm really narrowed myself. I'm really narrowing my supply just by having qualified teachers. I've still not had a problem with supply yet. So I'm sort of reassured that there is always going to be a sufficient number of amazingly qualified practitioners who teach to an extraordinarily high level. I think it's really useful at this point, because last episode we had on Oliver was a gentleman called Alex Russell, and he was the CEO. He is the CEO of a huge multi-academy trust, and we'll come on to this a little bit later. But one of the advice or bits of advice that we want to share with you, and I think it's a perfect time for us to see what your point of view on it is he said, it's your job. Now, just bearing in mind, he's got over 20 schools now. He's got 20,000 children, over 3,000 staff, or whatever. He's very high on a very, very big pyramid. And he said, it's your job to find out what that person has to offer. And he's talking about literally anybody within his employment. And he said, do not be presumptuous. And he gave some fantastic examples of, there was somebody who was just an admin person in his office, and he just sat down with her one day and said, well, listen, what do you want to do? Did you literally want to be an office manager for the rest of your days? She was like, oh no, I'd love to go into marketing and PR and all that stuff. And so he was like, okay, fine, off you go. Paid for her to go and have some training. And he said, when you come back, you do it for the Multi-Academy Trust. And now she's the sort of the head of the marketing and communications for the whole MAT. And so, yeah, I think there is something to be said about making sure you find the right people. How do you know when you found the right person, Oliver? Because we all know that having the right people can make or break businesses. And I've got some humdingers of some stories of people who have absolutely been bloody useless, and other people who have literally been beyond my wildest imaginings of how brilliant they are at their jobs. Advice for those who are recruiting.
I mean, we have currently got the strongest team that we've ever had, and I echo everything that you've just said. Having the right people in the right roles and as part of the right team, all pulling in the same direction, makes such a difference. We've got about 35 people in the office, just where I am today, and one bad apple can ruin that whole environment. And so in the past, we've had some hires that haven't worked out or haven't been quite right, and it's always difficult to, like, going back to knowing when to stop a business or stop an idea. It's the same, I guess, with staff. If they're not the right person, how much do you put into trying to help them become the right person? And at what point then do you call it a day? But I'm very, very fortunate that we've got a great recruitment team. Matthew, you've met Robin a number of times. She's the most organized person anyone will ever meet in their lives. And she has done a fantastic job with recruitment. We've done some quite big hires recently and replaced some people, and we've got a really strong team. Knowing people's skill set, as you just alluded to, is super important. And I've got a really good example. So the person who kind of trains on systems for us is going traveling. So he's leaving us at the end of this month, and he's fantastic. He's been with us a long time. He's been really good. And we're really nervous about replacing him. And we interviewed for a while, and we took somebody on who actually just started on Monday. So this is, yesterday was day 2. So it's now Wednesday when we're recording this. She started on Monday. And although she's applied for a training job, she had a background, and she's just done a master's in computer programming. And so we were asking a little bit about that, and her previous job role, she was working for, I think it was BT, big telecoms company, and she was having all these ideas of what she could bring in and what she could code. And because it was such a big organization, they weren't really listening and taking it on board. And so she started training on Monday. She saw that there was quite a manual process that had to be done, like setting up people on various different systems. It maybe takes 40 minutes or something of time to set that one person up. And she went home on her own accord on Monday night and wrote a piece of code, came in yesterday and said, I've automated it. And what took 40 minutes now is one click of a button and 2 seconds and it's done. And so until you kind of find out about what skills people have, because if we'd never talked about that side of it and said to her, look, we're really keen to use those skills, anything that you can bring and think where we can make things more efficient, 100% we're all ears to it. If we hadn't have done that, we'd have never found that skill set, and she would have never have done that. And for the next 10 years, we'd have been wasting a lot of time doing manual work. So yeah, super important.
From what Alex says, would you say that you kind of actively go out of your way as CEO and captain of NLG, like really try and extrapolate from your staff what they're passionate about or good at or want to aspire to be?
I have learned recently to try to, yeah. I mean, it's hard as teams scale, it gets hard, because when you've got 5 or 10 people, you can know everything about them. You know their kids' names, where they go to school, where they go on holiday. As it gets to kind of 10, 20 people, it gets a bit harder. 20 to 30 people, it gets harder still. So there's always then kind of comes a management layer. So then a lot of them will come with ideas of what their team are capable of. When we have new openings, we'll always try and recruit from inside. We'll always try and look at what people aspire to do and try and facilitate how we can use their skill set. Because at the end of the day, I guess, if everybody's doing a job that they enjoy and you're using their skill set that they feel that they're good at and they enjoy doing, you're going to get more out of them. So yeah, kind of goes without saying. I'm sure you've experienced that as well with what you're doing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I've recently I had a bit of an epiphany where sometimes you're just a bit too scared to let go of what you know, and that's not helpful. Or rather, it can inhibit an even greater level of growth. And so you stick with the better the devil you know, particularly with recruitment or whatever. And I'm going through that learning at the moment, and we'll see what happens as that time goes by. But I have to say that for me, recruitment is the scariest and the hardest thing, and also the most painful thing, because there are no consistent, well, I haven't seen, and recruiters will disagree with me, I'm sure, like, what are the metrics that I'm looking out for each and every time? There's no like consistent method of approach other than, you put your advert out or whatever. But like when I'm in an interview, I'll come off an interview and I'm like, I thought they were great. Yeah, great, let's hire them. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, perfect. But that's not the way forward. And I've got it catastrophically wrong in the past. And I think everybody else that I've spoken to who've hired in the past, they've gone, I was 85% sure or 90% sure this person was the bomb, absolute business. Car crash, carnage. And then hires that they've gone, oh, I'm just a bit worried about this. And the employee turns out to be, Superman on steroids. It's hard. I find, I don't know. Any other advice?
Well, also in an interview, obviously you're seeing someone's best side. That they're there to impress you, aren't you? So it is hard, and I think trying to judge how that person's going to fit into a team, especially because we're office based. Obviously, you guys are remote, but how that person is going to integrate into a team is just as important as to how they are going to be at doing the job, I think.
Do you you've just sparked a thought in my mind, is that actually I've got one employee who's absolutely phenomenal. She lives in South Africa, and she's been with me for nearly 3 years, and I've never met her in real life. Isn't that bananas? But we're on calls almost every day, and I know loads about her. I don't know how tall she is.
You're in South Africa at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in South Africa at the moment. She's on the other side of South Africa, like a 3-hour flight away. So it's not quite the same. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's so it's a brave new world that we live in. But you mentioned that you've got a growing team and it's a bigger team, and I want to bring back this idea of being agile, because for me, and maybe for Richard as well, being a small and agile company feels safe. I know that when you've grown, you'd be like, okay, do you know what? If that's not working, overnight we can change it. Overnight we can take it out from the website or whatever it might be. When did you get to the point, Oliver, that you realized NLG was way bigger than you, or way bigger than the point of agility?
I mean, I like to still think that we are agile and try and kind of instill that culture in everybody that no one's ever going to get pulled up for trying something and it not working. I'd rather that we try it and it fails than not try it at all. So I think if everybody's got the same mindset of doing that, then we're going to be as agile as we can. It's just a bit harder when there's multiple teams involved. I guess it's just different people have different ideas. You can learn from everybody. We have a anonymous suggestion email thing here where anyone can suggest an idea, and we will always look at everything that gets suggested. We have recently, our operations manager has kind of restructured the way that the student success team works. So they're now, rather than telling them, we want you to do this, this, and this, we try and go in with an outcome and say, look, this is what we want to achieve. Over to you. How are we going to do it? Because if they're the people that are doing it every day and they know the systems and the structures and the processes, they're probably going to come up with the best ideas of how to do it, rather than me trying to say, okay, well, go and use this software and click here and do this and do that, and then hopefully we'll get to here. They're going to know that way better than me. So I guess using people's expertise and trusting people, which, as you've said before, is super hard to let go of something. When you've built something and you feel like this is the right way, to then hand that over to somebody and they might take it a different way, and you're thinking, do I step in and say, do it like this? But then nobody's ever going to get better and achieve anything and own something if you're always on top of it. So I think that I also agree. I really struggle with that.
I love the idea of what I've noticed recently, and I don't know whether this is something that you both have experienced as well. The way I direct the company, because obviously I'm still the director of both companies, is I now enter meetings knowing almost nothing about everything, but I ask loads of questions about everything, and because I'm trying to get clarity of where the trajectory is going, or the process of how we're going to get there. And I've come to realize I actually don't care so much about the answers, just as long as it makes sense, because they are. So, for example, Emily, my general manager, she's got such clarity and such vision and she's obviously working with the marketing team and the admin team and the the tech team and the marketing, all the rest of it. And so I just asked loads of questions, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's makes total sense. Great. Have you thought about this? Oh, you have. Okay, cool. My role is becoming relatively superfluous until they do come to you and go, I really need your advice. I'm like, I don't know why you think I know, but actually I find that sometimes I do know. How do you let go? How do you let go and go, yeah, you got it.
I think everything that you read, doesn't it, says always hire people who are better than you. And that's especially the last year and a half, I've really been trying to make an effort to do that. So if you've hired someone that's going to be better than you at something, then really by you telling them what to do, you've negated the whole point of doing that, which is really hard. It's really hard, but you've just got to trust people, haven't you? You've got to trust the process, trust the hiring process, get the right people, which is easier said than done, and then trust them to make the right decisions. But it's hard. Yeah.
And this is the difference between a scaling business and a one that stays small, is that trust. Because if you only ever trust yourself, it's going to stay small forever. And that's okay for some people. But if you are looking to grow something, which is why we're all sat around here chatting about business, is because we want to inspire people to do this, then yeah, you're going to have to let go somehow. I think that was probably this was something that was shared with me years ago, but almost didn't believe it, if I'm honest. Someone was like, you'll bottleneck your own business if you don't. Because suddenly I'm still marketing, I'm still sales, I'm still lead tutor, I'm still key communicator with parents. I've got to do it all. And I don't do any of that stuff really well apart from the teaching. So if I can find people much better than me to do those things, then everyone's happy, right?
And it's the little things as well. Like up until a week or so ago, because again, I've been trying to get my team to help me let go of things because I've just really struggled with it. Up until a week or so ago, I was still buying the toilet roll for the office. So the office is running out of toilet roll. And when suddenly Amazon can't deliver it, so I'm driving to Costco and spending half of a day to go and pick up toilet roll.
And way more money than what you wanted to in Costco, because you can't go in there and just buy toilet roll.
Exactly. Come back with chocolate cake and muffins. Yeah. But that's probably not the best use of time. Mm-hmm. It's making sure that you can make processes efficient, that, even if maybe buying toilet roll on Amazon costs a little bit more than going to Costco, the opportunity cost of not having to spend half a day driving to Costco and standing in the queue, it's probably the right way to do it. Yeah.
It's also quite an interesting. How many did you buy?
Oh, we get through a lot. That's a whole nother discussion.
We've got a few minutes left, but what I want to also there's one business that we haven't touched on yet, because I think it blows open the doors to a whole new conversation, and I'd love you to introduce it if you feel comfortable to do so, because you're one of your many other side hustles is in AI, right?
Yeah. I've got a huge passion for AI. I think it's just so exciting, and I know it's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and every talk you go to at the Tutors Conference, there's AI in there somehow, and every podcast you listen to talks about AI. But at the end of the day, the whole world is changing at the moment, isn't it? So, yeah, where do you want to start?
Let's start at the beginning. What does your AI company do?
So we are called Dramatic Exit, and we build AI solutions for other businesses to make them more efficient through AI workflows. We work in a number of different industries, from helping recruitment agents to magazine subscriptions to marketing companies and film and production companies as well. So it's super exciting because no two jobs are ever the same, and it's an industry that's changing so quickly day to day that I've just never seen anything like the pace of change in it, and it's really exciting.
You say exciting. For other people, it's terrifying. How do you convince them otherwise? Because I have to say, one of the things that it blows my mind what it can do, and every single time I learn that AI can do this now, I'm like, what? How? Literally how? I'll give you a little example, and it's a really benign one. Oliver and I went shopping in China, and we got ourselves some new suits. Well, Oliver had a new suit made, but I was trying one on, and Oliver took a photo of me trying on a lovely sky blue blazer. It's gorgeous. I should have bought it, but I didn't. Anyway, from that one little photo, he then sends me a couple of weeks later a music video of me. It must have been about 20 seconds long, of me dancing to AI generated music and then doing a moonwalk backwards across this store. It blew me away. So some people say terrifying, other people say super exciting. Where's how do we reconcile the two?
I guess the question is it coming whether we like it or not? And the answer is yes. So are we going to be scared of it and try and ignore it and put our head in the sand and let everybody else get further ahead? Or are we going to embrace it, learn everything we can about it and understand it more? It's, I suppose, like when, personal computers first came in, people were like, oh, well, I won't be able to write things by hand anymore. It's like, okay, well, are you going to learn how to use a computer, or are you just going to carry on doing what you're doing? Or if you ran a farm in the Industrial Revolution and suddenly your neighbor had a tractor, are you going to embrace the tractor, or are you going to ignore the tractor? It's coming whether we like it or not. And it can make, if you can understand and learn about it, it can make life and business so much easier, so much more efficient. And you can make funny videos of your friends doing silly things. So
can we share this, please? I'd love to see it.
Well, I'll do a better one now, because that was a year ago, and the rate of change at the moment is just incredible. It's got to the point now where, up until 6 months ago, images you could still quite tell, the whole 6-finger thing. But then probably 6 to 12 months ago, it's got to the point where images now you just cannot tell at all. And very recently, over the last few weeks, I would say, the video now is at the point where you can't tell. If you know how to put a video together and what tools to use, you can create a video that no one is going to be able to tell is AI. So
quite scary, isn't
one of the jobs that we do for a business is AI influencers on social media. And you would open that profile and you wouldn't know it's AI. And you can chat to it. There's chat built into it. You can have conversations with them. They can go out and sell things for that business. They can promote it. And it's just a crazy, crazy world.
And how do you see it revolutionizing, disrupting the tuition industry?
Yeah, it's something that I think about a lot, obviously. And it's so hard to predict because it's moving so quickly. It's so hard to predict. And every industry, whether we like it or not, is going to be affected by it. But I would say about tutoring is that people come to tuition for the human touch, really, don't they? Anyone can go and ask ChatGPT how to solve a maths question, but it's not always about just the logistics of solving it. It's that human interaction and that confidence building, which currently really a human does a lot better than AI. So I think in our industry, it's more going to complement what we're doing. A tutor using AI well is going to be a lot more efficient than someone who's not, because it can help with things like lesson planning, marking, the logistics of a lesson, but not so much currently on the lesson delivery. And I think it will eventually reshape the way that we learn. But I think at the moment, still, the human touch is critically important for learning.
Do you think it can ever really replace the human touch?
It's a difficult one to answer, isn't it? Because just the rate of change at the moment is just unreal. If you take like Back to the Future, the movie, you've seen it, yeah? So
great movie.
Yeah, it is. It was set in 1985, I think. And so when they go back in time, they go back 30 years. And someone might correct me, but I think they go back to 1955. And it's a different world. So the electric guitar and the cars are different, but fundamentally it's kind of the same. But if you go back 30 years from now to 1996, think how different the world was in 1996. There was no phones, no internet, no electric cars. The world travel, we couldn't have just nipped to China like we did last year. it was just so different. And that rate of change is speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. So there was a really interesting thing I read about, going back 200 years and how 200 years back from now, there were no light bulbs. Everyone used horses. There was no medicine. But 200 years before that, there wasn't that much difference. 200 years before that, again, life was pretty much the same. But if we think about the rate of change that's happened recently, in another 200 years, life and the world is probably going to be very, very different to now. But you could go deep on it, and you can sound like a bit of a conspiracy theorist when you get into it. But it's happening, isn't it? You can see it over the last few years. It's just changing very quickly. What are your thoughts on it?
At the moment, I have so many thoughts that are complementary, contradictory. One thing that is for certain is coming down the line, and Daniel Priestley, who is somebody who I find interesting to listen to from an entrepreneurial point of view, irrespective of some of his political views, is I think he put up a picture of a street in like 1890, and it's all horse and drawn carriages and blah 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 blah. He put the same picture up 10 years later in the early 1900s, and there's like 2 horses, and the rest are automobiles. The first versions of automobiles, including the first version of of a bus. And he said this was 10 years, and I remember the panic and for those of you who are young, you won't know this, but for some of us who are of a certain age, do you remember that when we all turned from 1999 to 2000 and the world was going to stop because of this tiny thing called the millennium bug? No one really knew what it was, apart from sort of this binary code that wasn't going to be able to cope with 1999 going to 2000 or something like that. And I remember the clock striking midnight and that we were propelled into 2000, and everybody's like, what's going to happen? Nothing actually happened. But there was a big change in the early noughties, which was, mobile phones became a lot more current. The internet was much more available and accessible. Smartphones came a few years later. Like, it does change society, it does change culture, it does change behavior, it does change outlook, it does change voting habits, it changes kind of broad spectrum, loads of things. And so I think AI is going to be is going to have an equivalent impact, but at a higher order of magnitude again than when smartphones and the internet became something that was just in our hands. Yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
I think so much of our lives are going to become autonomous. Like we're going to all identify bits of our lives that we could just hand over to AI that will make a big difference to us in terms of time and effort. I mean, it's happening now, right? I had to rewrite a sales page on a website yesterday, and I was like, right, here's all the information. I want it in this style, in this format, and it did it. And I was like, great. And it saved me probably a whole day's worth of, well, I still had to do the whole day, like sorting out the web page, but didn't have to worry about the copy or the design. It was just all there. I think what it will do, it will, and this will be the short term, because I don't know the long term. I agree with Ollie. I think it's really hard to predict where it's going to go. But I think in the short term, and I say the next 6 to 12 months, it's going to highlight those people who have personal touches available in their business. And anybody who wants to have the human touch and make it a part of their business, you are going to stand out. Things which I've loved, but also kind of took a step back from, is automated messages on things like LinkedIn. I thought this is going very much on the business level now. But they scared me because it sounded so human, and it sounded like the person who was running the bot. And I was like, wow. But then if the person on the other side of that message was also doing the same, you've got 2 robots talking to one another. And I feel like that there's a danger in here. Like, if we give away too much, we're just going to end up in this weird, like, cauldron of just AI doing everything, even our conversations, scheduling, but potentially even running sessions if it's tuition. And you don't need to just go, well, you can just do that then. If you can just go and do all the outreach, do all the connections, make all the scheduling, you can also run the sessions and just do that. I mean, I don't think that's realistic, but essentially, that's the kind of stuff that's happening now, like with the messaging. And I went with the TTA recently, went on for about 8 months. We're changing bank accounts, right? So I won't give away everything, but 8 months it's taken. 8 months to change to a bank account because the AI system couldn't recognize, basically it was my fault, couldn't recognize a change of address. And so this system that they were using, and it became a bit of a joke. And and it wasn't just the AI system. There was some human interaction which also did go wrong. But essentially, it was like, can I just talk to someone about this? Because if I tell you my situation, this is done. It took 8 months, and they phoned me. So 2 weeks ago, phoned me in 8 minutes. It was sorted. It was just done. I was like, right, this is the situation. This is why I haven't got that particular proof of address, or there's still proof of ID, but the address is different because it hasn't updated yet. And they're like, all right, that's fine. I'm just going to send you this link now. Can you just put that on? Done. It was done. And I was like, it's just 8 months of pain. Like, just add a human in Sometimes you just need to have the human touch. So I think we're going to have like this. I think particularly in business, like if you really put a focus on having human touch at the right point and appropriate point, you will stand out, and you'll be moving above your competitors who don't do that, who are trying to automate everything.
Yeah, you can't automate everything. You definitely need that human touch. I think it's a strange time because it's the dawn of the new age, if you like. People are trying to implement it everywhere, and some places that it's getting implemented isn't right, and some implementations aren't right. But you were saying before, it's just like bots talking to bots. And I think that I was reading something the other day where something like 65% of internet traffic now is just bots. So the internet, we're now outnumbered on the internet that it
That's
is
insane.
talking to bots.
No
It's
way.
crazy, isn't it? It's
yeah,
crazy.
that really is. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I suppose there's two futures of where it could go, isn't it? It could lead to a life of abundance where manufacturing becomes so cheap because it's all automated, and therefore, products, abundance, food is grown a lot cheaper. Therefore, humans aren't needed to work as much, so we can have, a shorter working week, and we can focus more on social skills and relationships, and life becomes fantastic, and we've all got this kind of utopia of hardly any work, and we have everything that we want. Or it might go the other way and just kill us all. So I suppose you don't really know.
I'm loving. Let's leave it on the utopian version.
That's why I say please to ChatGPT. Please do this for me. Remember me.
Yeah.
Anybody who says please will be absolutely fine. Okay, let's just put that out there.
Didn't OpenAI published a stat, didn't they, where it's costing them something like $1 billion a year for people thanking it and saying please because of the extra energy.
Yeah, I read that too. Actually, don't say please.
I didn't read that. That's amazing. At the same time, I'm scared of not saying please and thank you to it because I want it to like present any outputs in a similar sort of courteous and polite way.
Yeah. It will always remember.
It will always remember. We're coming up to the time in the podcast where we are set a challenge by our fantastic guests, and we then have to go and do those challenges, those tasks, those there's the little challenges that might sort of really stretch us in one capacity or another. So, Oliver, we are set. You can unleash and do your worst on Richard and I.
Okay, so off the back of what we've been doing at National Learning Group over the last year and a half, of looking at every process that we have in the business and breaking it down into kind of micro detail to work out how that process could be most efficient, I would set you the challenge of picking one process within one of your businesses. It might be onboarding a student or putting a marketing post out, whatever it might be, and write down every single mouse click, every single keyboard stroke, every single word that is in an email within that flow, and try and get rid of at least 20% of it, ideally more. Try and optimize it as much as you possibly can. And when you start to do that, you start to see lots of repetition that you don't need, lots of words that you don't need, lots of clicks that you don't need. And so just take one process and deep dive it into as much detail as you possibly can.
I quite like that. I've written all of that down.
Okay.
And I think that's a really, really fantastic challenge, because what it does is it highlights just how much wastage there is. I was speaking to one of my team the other day, and she has to always send out, when we start working with a contract with a school, she's like, oh yeah, I just write the email out again. I'm like, well, haven't you got a template? She's like, oh, it takes me about 5 minutes. I'm like, yes, but 5 minutes every time you send it out is a really long time. The bare minimum you could have is a template email. She's like, oh, it's fine, I don't mind. I'm like, no, I do. I do. So that's going to be really, really useful, because time efficiencies are enormous, especially when you're working with a team. Richard, what's your first thought about that challenge?
Yeah, I think doing any audit like this is really useful, and also forces you to I think challenge yourself as well, because I think we let things slip because of that, like the mindset of, oh, it's only 5 minutes. It's only 5 minutes, until actually, if you add it up over the year, you've lost maybe 3 working days, and well, you could put that time somewhere else. And that's from one process. If you do that with lots of them, you could be gaining back so much time. And even more so if you've got a big team and you do that with every single person you employ as in your business, suddenly you've gained back a heck of a lot of time. So yeah, really useful. I'll have a go. I think I know what my process is going to be.
Oh, yeah. I look forward to it. It's also so easy to think, oh, we've always done it like that, so it works. But is it the best way for now?
My question is, Oliver, have you automated the purchase of toilet roll?
Well, we had looked into Amazon to doing a automated purchase, so potentially.
And finally, before we go, what would you say to your younger self? What would you say to your younger self? The Oliver of today, with all the experiences and the knowledge and the traumas and the learnings that he's had throughout all your myriad of businesses, what would you say to the Oliver of 25 years old?
I guess have confidence. Just believe in yourself. If you have an idea, trust your gut and go for it. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned recently that I would have liked to have applied in the past is don't be scared of competition. When we went to China, before I took that trip, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to be on this trip with a load of competitors. They're all running tutoring businesses. And look what's happened. We've all shared ideas. We've all come together. We've started side projects together. We've ended up on podcasts together. We're not competition. We are all doing something slightly different in the same industry. And by working together, we are pushing forward that industry and learning from each other and helping, because none of us can tutor all of the students out there. I think I said that at the awards thing. None of us have the capacity to do that. So why don't we all help each other to try and improve the industry and make tutoring something great that everybody sees as a viable alternative to school, or bolt on to school, should I say?
Yeah, well said. Yeah,
well said. I don't think we can cap that off. That's the best finish. That's the best finish we could possibly wish for on this episode. So, Oliver, thank you so much. I'm sure we will speak to you again in some episodes down the line and see what futuristic version of AI looks like. And you might actually just be sending an avatar in to have a chat with us. Who knows?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And look forward to catching up again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you in the next episode.